talking about. We are talking about like really, really global. We're talking about going to Paris and see someone wearing African print. We're talking about monetizing the African fashion industry. We are talking like seriously talking the talk. So right now, at this time, we are going to invite her. We know by the time Her Excellency gets here, she will have more information, she will have more things to tell us. But at this time, definitely we want to invite the one and only Miss Leila to come and really get this whole thing started and before we start taking our first steps. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. With all this, I don't know, I'm really shy, but with everything you said. Thank you. I'm really delighted to be here this morning. And I'm going to talk to you about CFTA and how fashion industry play a big role. The CFTA, for those who don't know, is the free trade agreement, continental trade agreement. First of all, let me introduce myself. She did, but I'll give you a little bit of my background. I'm Leila Njai, Richmond, Ivory Coast, Senegal, with China overseas. My dad was Senegalese Ivorian, born in Ivory Coast, raised there. Dual citizen of Côte d'Ivoire and Senegal. Okay. You hear me better?
Yes.
So I said I am a dual citizen of Senegal and Côte d'Ivoire. And I grew up in Ivory Coast until I finished high school there. Came to the US for my bachelor's degree at the American University, and then worked here and went back home. Came back in the US. So I came here in '89, so it's been 30 years ago. And came back after serving for the government of Côte d'Ivoire under the former President Gbagbo as a senior special advisor for 8 years. And when I came back, I joined the US Chamber of Commerce. I have a former colleague here sitting there, and in the capacity of Senior Director in charge of policy for Africa, and left the Chamber in 2017 and started at IGD, Initiative for Global Development. And IGD is an institution that was created in 2003 by Bill Gates Sr. And the main mission of IGD is to promote US-Africa trade, but also making sure that we address I don't like to use the poverty challenges because I think it's too insulting. I would say some of the development challenges by creating jobs, and creating jobs both in Africa and also in the US. And how do we do that? We do that by training, a lot of African people on the continent. We do that with our platform. We have what we call the Frontier 100 Leadership Program, and 65% of the members are African companies. We do have programs for SMEs, also robust program for women and youth since I took over. And also we do have a program on security, because if we don't have security, we cannot even talk about fashion, we cannot talk even about everything, even the CFTA, right? So since I joined IGD, I have aligned the strategy of IGD to the Agenda 2063 of the African Nation, the African Union. I see that the OAU, can you imagine? The African Union, and also align my strategy on the high fives of the African Development Bank, and of course Afrexim Bank. And Afrexim Bank sits on the board of IGD, and since I joined, we have organized some trade-focused events, but also programs. And one main program that we have is on industrialization, manufacturing, adding value to our products. So with the CFTA, and as you may know, the CFTA was launched recently in Niamey on July 7th, 2019, so yes, recent. And the CFTA is supposed to become the world's largest trade bloc, with a potential of 3.4 trillion in GDP, $3.4 trillion potential GDP and covering 1.2 billion people. So it is like the ideal agreement if all the tenets of the agreements are fully implemented to create jobs and address the employment challenge for the youth and also for the women. And this is where I see the fashion industry playing a big role in when it comes to its contribution to sustainable development, but also economic growth in Africa. As you may know, 60% of our population is under the age of 40. And the government cannot provide jobs, but we need more vocational training. We need to create jobs in the service industry, but fashion is one area, if well addressed, that can really create a lot of jobs if we can invest massively into training programs, but most importantly, provide the seed capital for young entrepreneurs in the industry so that they can really think about scaling up their businesses. I like to say something. For example, when you look at the economies and what we have instead of, when I'm talking about the raw materials, we think it's okay to grow all this cotton in Burkina Faso, Mali, and another country, Benin, for example, and not even having a single factory transforming this raw material into a cloth. It is not okay. We still think it is okay and proud to say, oh, they are wearing African prints, but made in Holland. It is not okay. And when we see all this, and with this free trade agreement, if we have the right infrastructures again, if we have the government making sure that everything is implemented, because the governments have a big role to play here and meet the deadlines so that this is fully implemented by 2022 at the latest, Africa then will then gain the respect that it deserves. And I'm looking sometimes at, and coming again to our raw materials and the rubber that we produce. But yet, we go to China to buy buttons. And we think it's okay. It is not okay. And we look at some leaders wearing our traditional cloth, woven cloth. The president of Burkina Faso is a good example. The president of Ghana is another example. Their predecessors, President Mandela, used to promote African fabric, and he was wearing only shirts designed by Pateo, who is from Burkina Faso. People think that they look like clowns. And instead of encouraging that, I've heard, oh, why do they like to wear pajamas? I've heard that before, which is an insult to our heritage, to our culture. Instead of encouraging that and being the ambassadors ourselves to our wealth, our own culture, our patrimoine, as we say in French, we allow people to make a mockery out of our patrimoine. And I think that with this, and you are all the ambassadors here, with the free trade, you are from the diaspora, it is about also time for you to go back and see the young designers in Africa, empower them, the youth, the women, so that they can get the inspirations from your experience being abroad. And even if it takes a month out of your time every year, it is worth creating hundreds of jobs, because it's a domino effect. So that has to be very encouraged. And most of the time, I look at the way we ourselves perceive our own fashion. And I'm like, what's wrong with us? We should be proud instead of being ashamed. I'll give you an example. When Hermes came out, they had this big collection of African prints in a silk. It was a silk scarves. And one scarf cost $400, $500, okay? But we're so happy to say that, oh, I went to Hermes, and guess what? I'm wearing an African print. And this Bamileke comes from Nigeria, or sometimes they look at some prints from the Bogolan, and we're like happy. And it just takes somebody to go to Madagascar, see the craftsmen there who are expert in the silk, because we do have silk, and go back to wherever, even it can be in Morocco, work with the people who know how to dye and add their added value to this material, and us as consumers purchase, even if it's not $400, but if it's $50, in order to empower the designer. But we rather buy Hermes with an African print that we don't even, when we are in Africa, we don't even pay attention to it, but it takes somebody from the West to show us our own culture, for us to respect our culture, and we need to change that too. So I think you guys have a lot of questions. This is just an opening statement, and I would love to answer any questions you have. I don't want to bore you with the technicality of the CFTA. First of all, because it's Saturday, and second of all, I would like to address like the real issues, how we can help designers, how we can help you prosper, and also be able to duplicate your model on the continent. Thank you.